Hello everyone and welcome to Hairenik Media. Today we are pleased to be joined by Mr. Giro Manoyan, the Director of the Armenian National Committee Central Office. Mr. Manoyan, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Mr. Manoyan, the Armenian National Committee, also known as the Armenian Coast Committee, has historically cooperated with successive Armenian governments. Given current government's shift in priorities, does this cooperation continue today? And if so, has there been any change in the focus of cooperation?
Since Armenia's re-independence in 1991, during the first administration of President Levon Bedrosian, at the beginning at least, until 1997, we didn't actually have any cooperation. Cooperation meaning consultation, expression of each other's opinions, so at least the other side knows what the other side is doing. Until 1997, when the president's administration took the initiative of holding consultations. And since then, there was a tradition established until 2019 even, when the leadership of the Armenian National Committee and representatives of Armenian national committees from different countries held annual consultations with the leadership of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, again, to let each other know what the other one is doing. So each decides what to do accordingly. But after 2019, there has not been any such consultation. And especially now, at least since the 2020 44-day war, actually there is a difficulty now with the current administration's policies, because what they have been doing is completely the opposite of what they had promised in 2021 during the National Assembly elections, and completely the opposite what the Armenian national committees have been pursuing all along. That is against the Artsakh issue, against genocide recognition, giving in to pressure and threats from both Azerbaijan and Turkey. So this has created difficulties for the Armenian national committees abroad, but everybody tries to manage and bypass that by trying to explain to the local governments, administrations, that what Armenia's government is doing now, regardless of what their ideology, if we can call that, is because of use of force or threat of force by Azerbaijan. So whatever the current administration agrees to, the Armenian administration, is really null and void the moment they agree to it, because it is done under threat of force or use of force. And we see the confirmation of that not only by the Prime Minister now, who tries to say if we don't do this then there's war, that's threat of war means, but also third parties who have said we avoided war, for example, in March of this year on Sunik, etc. So that's how this process of US involvement with Armenia and Azerbaijan negotiations and the then August 8 meetings in Washington, D.C. took place. So since everything is being done under the pressure of use of force or threat of force by Azerbaijan, then all the agreements they have is null and void. But all these processes actually create difficulties, but so far we've been able to bypass them.
Mr. Manoyan, the current government is promoting the Crossroad of Peace initiative and has pre-signed the so-called peace agreement. In your view, can this document ensure lasting peace, or do you see risks in it?
So the initial document of so-called peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia in itself actually has problems, even if it were signed and ratified by both countries. The points contained in the agreement have the problems in themselves, because even though they talk, for example, about principles of equality, law, etc., but they have disregarded many issues that still exist, especially the issues related to the rights of the Armenians of Artsakh and the prisoners, the right of return, etc., preservation of cultural and religious monuments. But the main focus, actually, we see of the pre-signed or initial agreement is, again, to force Armenia into submission. Aliyev has said that, we're saying this not because Aliyev said it, but Aliyev also brags about it, that Armenia capitulated with that document. So in itself, it not only doesn't bring peace, but it's really it seeds the new war that will happen if this goes like this, and Armenia continues to give in to Azerbaijani threats and pressures.
Mr. Manoyan, the U.S. has expressed support for the rights of Artsakh Armenians to return to their homeland, but at the same time, Washington deepens its strategic ties with Baku, signing agreements with Azerbaijan and lifting the 907 section of the Freedom Support Act, and actually removing the ban on arms sales to Azerbaijan. What concrete steps is the Armenian National Committee taking to hold the US administration accountable for its commitments?
About the 907 section, it's still the law. What Azerbaijan got is waiving for another year, the president of the US waiving that law for a year. That law was adopted in 1992, but after 9/11, there was an issue because of the US involvement in Central Asia, more or less, Afghanistan, etc. It needed to have the assistance of Azerbaijan for flying over there, etc. So they adopted a law which gave the president the right to waive that obligation of not selling arms or not assisting Azerbaijan militarily for 1 year, and each year the president can can sign, waive that, or not sign a waiver of that. Actually, when on August 8th they signed the de facto trilateral declaration, President Trump had not waived that until they signed it. So what he got, what Aliyev got, is waiving that law for 1 year. In Washington, Aliyev said, we removed the ban. Then he corrected himself in follow-up interview, saying it was waived. So what the US administration has recently made public, that it is in favor of the right of return of Artsakh Armenians. Actually, this is not new. What's new is that it is restating what it had said, for example, in 2023 October, when the US, along with some 40 other states, including Armenia and mostly Western or Western aligned states, had signed a declaration during the United Nations Human Rights Commission Council meeting calling for the right of return of Artsakh Armenians to be respected. So we've seen, of course, that many members of Congress, senators, have during this time expressed their support for the right of return. And this is actually a policy welcomed by everybody, that the U.S. has publicly has gone on record saying it supports the right of return for Artsakh Armenians. Especially in this case, the Armenian National Committee of America, it is the one which really had pursued this policy, achieved the success because of its efforts with members of Congress and the Senate. So it is the one leading the way in trying to keep the U.S. On this line. And there have been efforts by the Armenian National Committee of America to organize or help organize visits of, for example, Swiss parliamentarians. As you know, Switzerland, both houses of Parliament of Switzerland have adopted a resolution calling on their government to create a platform where Artsakh Armenians and Azerbaijan discuss how to implement this right of return. So in other countries as well, the Armenian national committees in each country is trying to pursue such policies to have their own countries support the right of return. I would say one of the success stories of this is the position of Canada, the government of Canada, before their recent election earlier this year and after the elections with the new government, new prime minister. It seems the policy is continuing. They too support the right of return of Artsakh Armenians, among other rights of the return of the Armenian hostages in Azerbaijan, the preservation of Armenian cultural heritage, etc. So these are the policies that the national committees around the world are pursuing. But again, we face hurdles when the government of Armenia, the prime minister, says, oh, that's unrealistic, it's not on our agenda. And unfortunately, I see now that approach has even passed on to very newly formed, not even yet formed, for example, Arman Tatoyan, recently when he announced that he's entering politics, he's establishing a party, and he's putting himself as a candidate for prime minister. He said, because it's not realistic now, it will not be on our agenda. This is unfortunate. But anyway, the Armenian national committees in different countries and the Armenian Revolutionary Federation as a party, especially in Armenia, pursue that. We recognize that this has many difficulties to be implemented today, but the goal is to keep the issue on the international agenda. For example, when the OSCE decided to dissolve the Minsk process, we were saying, we wrote to them, the chairperson in office, Finland's foreign minister, and other ambassadors in the OSCE, saying, you're just disregarding an issue, you're not resolving an issue, because what Armenia and Azerbaijan have pre-signed or initialed doesn't address the issue of the rights of Artsakh Armenians. So the OSCE Minsk group was formed to resolve those issues, the rights and security of Armenians in Artsakh. You're not resolving that issue, but because, again, under pressure, under pressure from Azerbaijan and Turkey, Armenia has agreed for the dissolution of the Minsk group or Minsk process. You're agreeing, but you're not addressing the issue. So we want to keep the issue on the international agenda.
Mr. Manoyan, after the closure of the International Committee of the Red Cross in Baku, does the Armenian National Committee have any mechanisms to monitor or follow up the situation of our captives held there?
What the Armenian National Committees have been doing is calling on their governments to send observers to the so-called trials in Baku, and it's significant that the U.S. State Department, in its letter regarding the rights of Artsakh Armenians, right of return, etc., also has said, whenever possible, what does that mean? I don't know. Whenever possible, American diplomats are following the so-called trials. The so-called is from me, not the U.S. So we have approached other states as well and international organizations to try to use different mechanisms that they have available to them, but that hasn't given any result yet. Within the network of Armenian National Committees worldwide, there is also the Armenian Legal Center, which is a US registered entity, but its board of directors includes experts, lawyers mainly, not only from the US, but from other countries as well, from Canada to Argentina and everything in between. And it is the one which is pursuing the issue of hostages, not only the current hostages under trial or some of them who have been so-called tried and convicted, but also the rights of those who have at any time been held by Azerbaijan since the 2020 war, including the 2020 war. And the Armenian Legal Center cooperates closely with the international and common law center of comparative law, International and Comparative Law Center registered in Yerevan, which is headed by lawyer Siranush Saagyan. She actually represents all the hostages who have been held since 2020. And even if they have been returned to Armenia, they still follow because defending their rights at the European Court of Human Rights, because even being held for 2 months is violation of the right of the individual. So the Armenian Legal Center is active in pursuing the issue of hostages, remaining hostages, and all those previously who were held. The Armenian Legal Center also works with both the IC law and other centers, organizations, in pursuing the legal prosecution of Azerbaijani high-ranking officials in different formats, because there are also sanctions could be established by different countries against those officials without holding any trial. The evidence is enough for the executive of each country or even international organization to decide on it. But there also has been communication to the International Criminal Court, etc. So at least on the legal side, it is the Armenian Legal Center pursuing the issue. On the political side, it is the Armenian national committees in different countries trying to raise the issue both of the sanctions against Azerbaijani officials and defending the rights of the hostages. And as I said, there is actual interest with the hostage issue, and there are states, even the High Commissioner for Human Rights of the United Nations last year called for the unconditional release of all political prisoners, including ethnic Armenians in Azerbaijan. So But this is too is one of the priorities of the Armenian National Committees.
Mr. Manoyan, and one final question, as you already mentioned, cultural genocide is continues in Artsakh, and Armenian monuments are being erased or are under threat. What does the Armenian National Committee do to address this issue, and what are your core objectives today?
We cooperate closely with organizations, and there are several organizations. One, for example, is the Diocese of Artsakh, the church organization. The Holy Mother See of the Armenian Church has an office which now is handled by the Diocese of Artsakh. There are other organizations as well, both Armenian experts, but also international. There are organizations which include both Armenian and non-Armenian experts. They do the study of what is happening. So we're not duplicating their work. What we do is try to disseminate the information that they have gathered to the necessary political and other circles. For example, these days, Armenian National Committee representatives from the US and Europe, along with other NGOs, both from Armenia and abroad, are participating in the OSCE Human Rights Annual Conference in Warsaw, which lasts some 10 days. And every issue is regarding human rights, including this case, are raised there, discussed there. There are diplomats, there are NGOs, there are journalists, etc. So it's a very good forum for everybody to try to raise their issues. So at every possible venue, we try to raise this.
Is there any hope that from statements we can switch to concrete actions?
Expecting concrete actions is what we do. We expect them to take concrete actions, but we're not very optimistic that they will soon do, especially if we take into account what Azerbaijan did in 2005, November, December in Nakhichevan, in front of the whole world, destroying so many Armenian khachkars, etc. But we continue because there are international organizations like the UNESCO, which unfortunately until now is under the direct influence of Azerbaijan because Azerbaijan gives them money. There are other international organizations, for example, academic institutions in the Vatican, of the Vatican, again for the same reason, because they've been are being financed by Azerbaijan, have not taken action or succumbed to Azerbaijani fake approaches. So we try to resolve these issues with them, saying that you're destroying the very foundation of the principles that you're trying to protect, apparently, for example, the UNESCO. But with the Vatican, it's, I think, even better because it's a centralized institution. It's not an international organization as such. So it's clear if you can approach the leadership of that organization, the Pope and whoever comes below him, then it's easier to cooperate with them. But the UNESCO issue is different. Now there is a new director general of the UNESCO, just elected. He's someone from Egypt, and hopefully he can have a more fair, balanced approach to this issue. But we continue to raise this because also there are other non-governmental international organizations which can pursue this issue. In Europe, there are who raise this issue, etc. And we can see that especially the cultural heritage issue is probably the easiest to talk about for international organizations or non-Armenian politicians, and they continue to do that. We don't expect in any of these quick actions. The quickest probably may happen, this is nothing based on any fact, but just relatively what the core issues are, may be the return of at least some of the hostages. Probably not the political military leadership of Artsakh, but at least some of the rest of the 23 is still held in Baku. But regardless of how quick the results may be, it is our task, we believe, of the Armenian National Committees, to pursue these issues, because if we don't pursue these issues, we're certain they will not be resolved. If we pursue the issues, at least there is a chance for them to be resolved.
Mr. Manoyan, thank you for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you very much.
And to our viewers, thank you for watching Hairenik Media.